van hierdie gedenkdiens van hom Frank begin. En ons sing die eerste lied op die pamflet, nummer 241. Dit is 'n lied, die laaste lied wat hom Frank uitgegee het. En die diens is saam. The truth of God so precious, I value more each day. The truth of God so precious, I value more each day, as with the contract I walk with Jesus in the way, the lonely way which most despise, I glory now to tread, anointed I see always, Jesus ahead. The path of life I found in Jesus most complete, though now cast out and suffering, His fellowship is sweet. His constant plan and pattern, the new and living way. My joy it is to follow with Him each day. I'm glad He ever found me and came to dwell with Him. The stronger than the strong man, who saves me now from sin. Was life I got, not theory. His voice I did obey, and entered in by Jesus, God's only way. Now I've a tender shepherd, who leads to pastures new. His voice it is my comfort, His hand is strong and true. I long to follow closer, still nearer to His side. I never can forsake Him. He is my guide. Ons oosluit in gebed. Onse Vader in die hemel, weer eens is ons herinner daaraan dat U is God en ons is stof. En U is die skepper en ons is skepsels. En ons is weer herinner daaraan dat U is ewig en ons menslike liggame, ons tyd hier op die aarde, maar net tydelik. En ons is weer herinner aan ons eie verganklikheid. Maar ons dank U dat die liefde in die hart vir die mensdom so sterk en so diep en so wyd is, dat U dit goed gedink het om U eie seun na die aarde te stuur, om 'n verbintenis te maak met ons die mens, om ons verganklikheid te oorbrug, om deur die evangelie U eie onverganklikheid in ons te bring, ons 'n hoop te gee op die ewige lewe, want dit is U wil en dit is U plan, dat ons eendag vir ewig en altyd by U in die hemel kan wees. Ons dankie dat hierdie plan van U, dat dit nog daar is, en dat ons in hierdie dag en hierdie tyd nog steeds tekens kan sien daarvan. Ons dit kan voel in ons harte, in ons gees, ons siel, soos wat U tot ons spreek, soos wat U ons probeer trek nader aan Uself. Ons dank U ook vir wat ons kon sien in die lewe van oom Frank, wat vir ons sê, oom Frank het die evangelie gehoor, en hy het dit ontvang, en hy het dit omhels, en hy het dit gehoorsaam, en in swakheid het hy daarin gevolg. Ons dank U dat U hom die genade daartoe geskenk het. Ons dank U dat U getrou was aan hom, en ons dank U ook vir dit wat voorlê, dat hierdie nie die einde is nie, maar dat daar 'n opstanding gaan wees, en vir alles wat daarop volg. En dit verstom ons as ons dink, die wonderlike dinge wat kan wag, as ons U maar net kan glo, en as ons maar net kan vertrou, en U hand sien, wat uitgestrek is na ons, en dit aanneem. Ons vra vir die nabyheid van die Gees hier met ons nou. Wil U ons tog troos, en wil U ons tog help, dat ons blik en ons fokus weer kan sit op dit wat die belangrikste is in ons lewens, die saligheid van ons siele. Ons vra in Jesus naam en vir sy ontwil. Amen. Ek gaan lees uit Jakobus, die 4de hoofstuk, vers 14. Hy vra, hoe danig is julle lewe? Dit is tog maar 'n damp wat vir 'n kort tydjie verskyn en daarna verdwyn. Ons almal het al gesien as ons 'n ketel water kook, soos die water warm word, is daar stoom, en later, ons kan daai ketel selfs droog kook, geen water nie, al die stoom in die lug, en later is daar ook nie eers meer stoom in die lug nie, dit verdwyn. Hy vra, hoe danig is julle lewe? Hoe is dit? Hoe is dit regtig? Ons kan dink, ons is groot en sterk en onoorwinbaar. Ons kan dink, ons is onverganklik. Dit is wat ons dink, maar wat is ons werklik? Wat is ons werklik? Hy sê, ons lewe is soos 'n damp wat vir 'n kort tyd verskyn, en dan maar net weer verdwyn. En dan wat dan? Dan wat dan? Wat was die effek van ons lewe? Jy weet, 50, 60, 80 jaar terug, het hier mense in hierdie stad gebly, dit was seker nog maar 'n dorp, en ons onthou hulle nie regtig nie. Van die strate se name en van die skole hier is vernoem na hulle, maar dit het nou vir ons, in hierdie geslag is dit net name. Ons het hulle nie geken nie. Ons het nie interaksie met hulle gehad nie. Hulle het nie invloed, 'n effek op ons lewens gehad nie. Maar elkeen van ons, wat ons nou lewe, ons lewe, het 'n impak, het 'n invloed op diegene wie ons ken, op diegene wie met ons meng. Net soos die ou mense van 70, 80 jaar gelede in hulle geslag. As ons aan onsself dink as water, is 'n God-gegewe gawe, soos dit sê in Job, God het gegee en God het geneem, en dit is God se prerogatief. Ons vra nie. Ons wil leer om te aanvaar. Ons hoef nie te verstaan nie. Ons wil ons neerlê by God se wil. Dit is deel van God se plan. So God het gegee. En dan is daar dinge wat in hierdie lewe gebeur met 'n mens en of die water kan kouer word en vries of dit kan warmer word. Dit kan warmer word en dit kan bereid wees om dit self te gee. En soos 'n damp. Ons het nou gesien in die COVID tyd, mense was aangeraai gewees, gesond. Ons weet ook daar is gevaarlike dampe wat ons nie moet inasem nie. Dit is gevaarlik, giftig. Ons kan sê vandag, van Frank se lewe is gesond vir ons. Ons sal sy liefde onthou, sy opregtheid, dit het my altyd verstom, al was hy, kan ek sê met respek, 'n ou man, dat hy nog so jonk van gees was. Hy was op datum met die realiteit en die werklikheid om hom. Mens kan sê hy was nugter in sy uitkyk op die lewe. En hy het meer van homself verwag as van ander. Dit is dalk hoekom hy rustigheid en kalmte en vrede gehad het. En in 'n natuurlike sin, oom Frank se lewe is verby. Die liggaam. Maar geestelik, dit duur nog voort. Ons lees van Lazarus, wie al gesterf het, wie al begrawe was, en net voor die Here Jesus hom opgewek het, het hy gesê, hy slaap net. Hy het verwys na die siel. Dit slaap net. Dit wag op 'n opstanding, 'n opwekking. In Johannes 5, vers 29, lees ons van 2 soorte opstandings. Dit gebeur nie dieselfde tyd nie, as min of meer 1000 jaar tussen die twee. Die een is die opstanding van die wat goed gedoen het tot die ewige lewe. Openbaring 20 sê vir ons, dat die ander hulle herlewe nie, totdat die 1000 jaar verby is, en dan die opstanding tot die ewige verderf. Dis soos 'n T-aansluiting. Dit is of die kant toe of daai kant toe. Daar's nie van, ons kom daar en ons kan miskien nog 'n tweede kans kry daarna nie. Ons het nou ons kans, ons het nou ons geleentheid. Dit is wat die evangelie so dringend maak. Want die saligheid van ons siele is baie ernstig. En die evangelie is baie dringend. Dit is wat ons gaan help om voorberei te wees. As hierdie ondervinding in ons eie lewe kom, en ook die tyd wat ons die opstanding, hoe danig sal ons opstanding wees. Jakobus vra hier, hoe danig is julle lewe? Ons gaan verder gaan en vra, hoe danig is ons opstanding? Gaan ons deel in die eerste opstanding van die regverdiges, of gaan ons deel in die tweede opstanding van die ewige verderf? Ons kan onsself verder vra, hoe danig is ons ewige lewe? Is dit in die teenwoordigheid, die heilige teenwoordigheid van God, sy seun en al die heiliges, vir altyd en altyd? Of, soos dit sê in Openbaring 20, saam met die duiwel, sy engele paragraaf 4. 'n Ander plek noem dit die hel. Jy weet, hoe meer 'n mens hier aandink, hoe meer dankbaar word ons, hoe meer waardeer ons God se liefde en sy voorsienigheid, dat God vooruit gekyk het. Hy het besef, dit is wat die uiteinde gaan wees, maar God het ook besef, wat het gaan vat om 'n verskil te bring. Om dit moontlik te maak vir ons, dat hierdie vraag, hoedanig is ons lewe, dat dit nie 'n antwoord in wanhoop sal wees nie, maar dat dit ons kan antwoord met 'n hoop. Ons kan sê, ons het die evangelie. Ons het God se genade, ons het geloof, en met God se hulp en met God se genade kan ons hoop vir die beste moontlike uitkoms. Kingsley sal nou die diens verder neem.
So voortgaan met die volgende lied asseblief. Troostend is dit my die gedagte. 222.
Troostend is my die gedagte.
van Openbaring 14 lees. That's Revelation chapter 14. It says in verse 6, "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, to every nation and kindred and tongue and people." Verse 8, And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And verse 12, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, in his hand a sharp sickle. Another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So I certainly do feel for the family this time, children, Ansel, Morley, Barry, all the sisters and the other family, all so unexpected. And I have had a long association with the Pretorius family. And they, I've noticed, very caring, very loving, and very appreciative one of another. When I began in this ministry, the beginning of 1986, I was sent to Bloemfontein. And I arrived on the Saturday morning, 1st of February, and that Sunday evening, I was in a meeting with Piet and Aunt Nellie. And their home after that became very special over the years. I've had 4 years in Bloemfontein. And that same year, I had time in Gariepdam. And there was Yapi and Auntie Joey. Appreciated their kindness and their friendship over the years. And even at that time, we had time in the Eastern Free State. And there was Ben and Shirley, firstly in Bethlehem, and then later in Kroonstad. Remember something that Ben shared there. He said they had to have water. They were boring for water, and they were desperate. They'd had how many people coming out to divine for water, and there was just no success. And the one morning, he was desperate, and he prayed, and he went up on this mountain. And there he saw a green patch. And he thought, well, that's the place. And that was where water was found. And we're glad for those, even spiritually, that get to a point of desperation somewhere in their life's journey. And they want living water. And they're willing to climb, willing to pray, willing to make an effort to get that. And even going back a few years when I was in the military, 79, 80, I was very often in the home of Martin and Trix, who at that time had a Wednesday night meeting. And then in 1988, I was in Kimberley. Had a lot to do with Marnie and Leonie. Appreciated their kindness. And I must say, I found Leonie had a great depth in her life. And very often in her little meetings, she had something that fed my soul that year. I really appreciated it. And one other thing, when I began in this ministry, Abram and Muriel were there. And you can imagine now I'm starting with no experience. And there was Abram, who had 30 years experience in this ministry. And I felt pretty well out of my depth. preaching to that man. But I was so appreciative of his spirit and his guidance. He said, look, I've had my years and I've had my experience, but you do your best. And he was a great support and help to me, and took away that feeling of feeling incapable in his presence. And of course we won't forget the old mother, dear Auntie Alice. And we had a lot to do with her. We used to visit her, and actually I had a part in the funeral. That was in 1993. Remember that clearly. And very often, co-worker and myself, we would visit Auntie Alice. And she had so much to share, spiritually, but also of the whole family. She could tell you about every child, every grandchild, exactly where they were in their life's experience. Even though an old lady, she was very, very special. And Frank, well, I remember visiting Lichtenburg quite a few times in 1983, 1984, 1985, when the family was still there. And happy days together. And some competitive rounds around the table tennis table. He was a good competitor, remember that. And so, as I say, very close association with the family all the years. I remember also the time I was in Cape Town, 1989, when Frank and them were down there in the Strand. And also then later here in Polokwane or Petersburg, I've had 5 years here. And I remember Barry still 98. He was still at home, 16 years old at the time. And then I remember Frank selling his house, 2003. I still remember the price he sold it for. And your life wasn't always so easy for Frank. And there were many, I remember even the problem he had with his eyes and the hairs growing inward. Many, many challenges. Not always easy naturally, not always easy spiritually, not always easy economically. But he kept on going. And I also remember, now I'll share with our sister here, Alice, and the association we've had in this ministry. And in 2001, I was given the responsibility to look after our church conventions in Pretoria. And I had no experience, but I was put with Auntie Alice. And she had had many years of experience. And I learned very much from her, I must say, which has been a help over the last 22 years of having had that responsibility. Really appreciated that. And it wasn't just even about the natural, but she'd usually have something spiritual to share amidst all our demands and activity. And I remember that year, 2001, when we had our big day on the Saturday to prepare, and things were pretty chaotic at that stage. There was still a lot of work being done. And I was finished on that Saturday night and trying to prepare for the meeting the next day. And I remember reading Isaiah 45, and it talks there about treasures in secret places. And that's what I spoke about that Sunday morning. Just getting some treasures out of different experiences. And I spoke before Auntie Alice that morning. And then she told us something. She had something else to share, but she told us of a little experience that when she was a little girl, she and a friend, they had a little secret place in a tree, and they loved each other, and they would write notes to each other, And then Alice would go and look as her friend put a note for her. And then her friend would go and see if Alice had put a note for her. There was this interchange, a little secret bond. And how we can have this walk with God, and we can have secret treasures, personal treasures that we can build up over the years. Even as we read the scripture, there will be something that God reveals to us, a little secret, just between us and God. And so our treasure chest can become bigger and bigger spiritually. And so as we think of this, which we read here in Revelation 14, about this everlasting gospel, and we're still thankful it's on this earth. And it was exactly when Frank was born, the very year when the gospel came to the Pretorius family, Annandale, little place. But God saw their need and visited them there with this gospel. And it's not something that comes through the flesh, not something that comes through human persuasion, but it's an individual revelation that comes. And we're glad for a time when the different ones in the family accepted this gospel, and it became precious to them, something that was precious to Frank in his experience. And as I say, even though there were these different experiences that came, not always so easy, he held fast to that faith, to that persuasion, and to the hope of what lies beyond. As it says also in Peter, the end of your faith is the salvation of your soul. And then as it says here, their works to follow them. And Jesus first coming to this earth, he came as the sower. But here we see at the command of the angel, he's going to come back as the reaper to claim the spiritual harvest, those that have responded. And then we also see the other side of it, Babylon. That's just a picture of confusion in the world, confusion even in the matter of worship. It can be confusion. And if you go to Revelation 18, it says, the voice says, come out of there. Come out of all those evil spirits and all that's wrong there. Come out of there. And we're glad for each one that comes out and responds to that. And we also, Frank chose that hymn, 241, in the Sunday just before he passed away. And there's something I can tell you about that hymn. It says there, the truth of God so precious, I value more each day. And a brother from Canada, he visited us a number of years ago. And he was telling us there was an old age home. And there was a man there who was serving God in truth. And many of the others were complaining. They weren't really happy with what they had. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll get my preachers to come for 6 weeks. And you've got to promise me, if I go to that trouble, they've got to attend. You've got to attend. And he said, okay. And they went there for 6 weeks, and they had meetings every night, and they were obliged to attend because of their promise. And a number of them responded to the gospel at that time. And later, they used to have little meetings there together. And then they would often sing that hymn, 241. And one day, a visitor came and said, why do you sing that hymn so much? Well, they said, we valued the truth when it came our way. But as time has gone on, we've begun to appreciate it even more. And so we're glad for that which Frank held to. When we were staying now, they were saying, actually, Frank used to love every hymn. He said every hymn in our book is beautiful. And he loved singing them. We're glad it wasn't just from his lips, but also there was a song in his heart because of the work of God. And so we do feel for you in your loss. And even for the little church here in Petersburg, Polokwane, feeling the loss of another member. They've actually lost 3 members just in the last 15 or 18 months or so. So we do feel for you. So we'll sing now the next hymn, 54, and then I'll close with a prayer. 54, please. Sluit net met gebed. Ons Vader, ons voel so dankbaar vir elkeen hier teenwoordig, vir die verbintenis van elkeen met Frank, wat hy vir ons as 'n vriend, as 'n vader, as 'n oom, as 'n broer beteken het, ook vir sy deel hier in die gemeente in Polokwane. Ons is dankbaar vir wat ander ook vir hom gedoen het, vir wat hy vir hulle gedoen het. Maar veral is ons dankbaar vir u groot plan van saligheid, en dat u hierdie evangelie van die begin af beplan het, en alhoewel die mense in die begin gesondig het, dat u het ook 'n plan van verzoening vir die mensdom gehad deur u seun, deur sy bloed, deur sy offer en ook deur sy lewe wat hy gelos het as voorbeeld. Ons is dankbaar dat hy die begin en die volleinde van ons geloof kan wees en dat eendag ons die voorreg kan hê om vlekkeloos voor u te staan. Ons is dankbaar ook vir die gebede van Frank namens soveel, en ons weet dat dit selfs in 'n goeie, goue hieropak in die hemel bewaar kan word, en dat u nog van daardie gebede op die eie tyd kan antwoord. Ons vra dan dat u met ons sal wees, selfs as ons hier vertoef en ook uit mekaar uitgaan, want dit vra ons alles in die naam van Jesus. Amen. So sal dit namens die familie, julle almal dank vir julle teenwoordigheid hier vandag, en welkom saam met hulle nou ietsie te eet en te drink. Baie dankie. Goed.